Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the meeting. I declare it open at 5:30 p.m. This meeting is being live streamed via Zoom webinar facilities, and recording to council meetings or parts thereof cannot be copied, recorded, reproduced, reused, or transmitted without the prior written consent of the General Manager. The meeting is being recorded and was made available publicly on council's website. Persons attending the meeting should refrain from making any defamatory statement. Council acknowledges that this meeting is being held on traditional lands of the Wiradjuri, Gundungurra and Darug people, and we respect the history and culture of elders both past and present. And I'll now invite Carla Pipes from the Kitchen Life Centre to lead the council in prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for our beautiful community of Oberon. Lord, I pray that you continue to bless us. Lord, I thank you for our leaders and pray that you bless them and continue to give them leadership. And Lord, I pray for our deliberations, you will just give us wisdom and peace. And Lord, I thank you for our community. In your name, amen.
The record of attendance is in order. Are there any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest. We have a presentation tonight from Lincoln Bripper, who is regarding his fundraising walk from Oberon to Westmead Hospital in Sydney, which is planned for October this year. Lincoln.
Thank you. Good afternoon, councillors, Mr. Mayor, executive staff, members of the public gallery. My name is Lincoln. Many of you know me, the guy who runs Oberon Walk for Life. I want to give a brief presentation to you all this evening and make you aware I am walking from Oberon to Westmead on the 2nd of October to raise funds for Westmead Children's Hospital. Many of you may not be aware, my son Noah's a treatment hospital down at Westmead for numerous surgeries. Another one's planned for the 25th of this month. Due to the wonderful work and support Westmead Children's Hospital does to my family and many other families in Oberon and our region, I felt I want to give back to them to raise funds so they can keep the amazing service available for our children. This is the reason why I'm doing a presentation. I'm seeking support as well as sponsorship from our council, as well local community. I'm hoping there will be some way I can get some help filling out forms for my insurance, as I'm not experienced with that. And also if council would be open to assist with a payment fee of $350 just to help me out. If council wish to assist in any other way, I would be grateful, appreciated. There's also, I need water on the walk and safety vest. And also, if anyone wants to walk with me, some parts of the walk or all the way down, and also fuel for bus I'm using. I'm hoping that Oberon Council and other businesses can get behind me supporting the walk. The next week or so, I'm hoping to get a Facebook page completed, where people can follow me by step, and they can sponsor me if they want to sponsor. And I'll put signs up around town. That's it. I can show a copy of this.
Please, Brett. Thank you, Lincoln. Look forward to seeing you. No, you're heading on down the road.
Yeah. No, thank you all. I'll let you know.
Item 7, questions from the public. Public gallery is open to members of the community. The community is to be given the opportunity to ask questions at the commencement of the council meeting. The mayor is to ask questions from the gallery prior to the commencement of the ordinary meeting. Members of the public wishing to address council are permitted to do so, provided the following guidelines are adhered to. The person asking a question at the council meeting must clearly state their name and in what capacity they are acting. And if the person is asking questions is acting as another person or organisation's agent, they must advise council if they have their prior consent or authority. Questions from the public is not an opportunity for debate with elected representatives or staff. It's an opportunity for the community to ask questions in relation to an issue or put a point of view relating to an issue that may be causing interest or concern. Due to time constraints, a time frame of 3 minutes per speaker is allocated, and all questions, comments must be directed through the mayor in the instance of a question. If the question cannot be answered, it will be taken on notice and a response given within a reasonable period. This is the only opportunity for a community member to address council during an ordinary meeting. Do I have anyone who wishes to speak?
Mary Doug, member of the Andy Chester group. I'd like to submit a petition explaining that with 553 signatures. To the best of our knowledge, the only signatures from people outside the Shire are people who have a commercial or residential interest in the matter. I think that's about all I can say about it. It's all the signatures and what have you were collected in the main street. So we're very confident that they're genuine signatures. Yeah. That's fair.
That'll be part of the submission that go to state government on this matter, and I'll advise board that we have received that petition and the numbers of people that are involved in it. So,
My name is Kathy Sadowitz and I represent Biodiversity Action Group. Peter Harvey and Barry Stubbs spent many hours in the main street collecting 553 signatures contained in the petition you've just received. The group hopes that the petition will demonstrate the depth of concern within the community in relation to the board redirect proposal to establish a biodigester on site at the timber complex and transport 65,000 tonnes of municipal waste from Sydney and the regions to feed it. The impacts of the proposal on the community are completely unacceptable. The fact that the proposed site plan shows a future second biodigester and associated storage tanks clearly indicates that should this project be approved, the intent to expand is very real. When the EIS is lodged and submissions invited, we urge councillors to put the interest of the community first when determining whether to support this project or not. Please do not lose sight of the fact that you were voted into your roles to represent the Oberon community. The Biodigester Action Group respectfully requests, that the General Manager ensure all councillors receive a copy of the petition, and thank the councillors in advance for taking the time to consider the petition.
anyone else?
Hi, well, my name's Robert Scott. I'm the individual regarding 1311 land matter at Black Springs, page 105. Anyway, look, I'd just like to take this opportunity to come along with the business. I want to develop the land that is just on the corner of Abercrombie and Campbell's River Road in Black Springs. That was the plan. Now, due to communication situations between us and council, I'm really, this is the first time I've heard about this even coming to you guys, apart from some correspondence I've received from your planning department. Now, I want to develop it. That's what I want to do. I own the Black Springs General Store. I'm trying to develop that too. It's a massive investment on my part. I'm not asking for funding, but I am asking for you guys to continue to show some support for what I want to do. The reason why you haven't received detailed plans is because I wasn't informed clearly that you guys would have gone ahead as a legislative body to sell me the land if I'd gone into the expenses of getting it. Now, this is what I'm going to propose to you guys tonight. Why not give me a letter saying that you are going to support me buying the land potentially? That way I can take that letter and I can go to planning consultants and I can provide council what you need. Because at the moment, from memory for this job, it's an RU3 zoning, which means that at the moment, I have to provide a development that fits into that zoning. Now, having read this brief here and having spoken to your general manager, I understand that you want to put that stuff to one side until you have what you call a broader plan that's in place. What I'm going to propose is this: if you guys send me a letter just saying that you're going to support the sale of the land to me based on a development of some description, I'll then provide the council with something that looks like a plan for the entire precinct, a community precinct in Black Springs that could work. That way, with something on paper that's actually got some diagrams and some visuals, we can go for funding, whether it be on a Commonwealth and state level, to get Black Springs up and running. There's nothing more dismal right now than going out to Black Springs and seeing it. It is really cold and it is really isolated. It's not welcoming at all. So when you guys support this, I encourage you to support Black Springs, and that support some kind of stay of a resolution so I can continue my work there. This is the first I've heard about this. If I weren't informed of this, I mean, I've come down from the Central Coast because I've heard you guys talking about it tonight. So I encourage you guys to support the idea of me actually developing that block of land and not to hold back. Because holding back now, it's just going to cost more for the development in the future. Thank you for your time.
Just the questions submitted or not.
Thank you.
I thought they were permissible. I thought questions to someone making the presentation was.
That wasn't a presentation. That was speaking to one of the.
Okay, questions from.
This is speaking to an agenda item.
And that's under question from the public. It's not a presentation. Anyone else? Please.
Hello, my name is Deborah McKenzie and I live in Oberon. My friend and I were concerned to see the amount of excavation going on next to the ball plant. Can you clarify, is that part of the Oberon project?
Through the chair, I'll defer to the planning director, but my understanding would be the development.
Through the chair, that's correct, with better ground development.
And can you confirm how many truck movements are expected to be generated by this development?
Through the chair, I'd have to take that on notice. I'm not aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, thank you very much for your questions, and we'll get back to you individually if once the information being able to be provided to you. All right, item 8, confirmation of minutes.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillors, item 8, confirmation of minutes. And recommendation for minutes for the ordinary meeting held on the 20th of June 2023 be confirmed. I will move and second them, please. Councillor McKibben, Councillor Page, Councillor McKibben.
I'm more than happy to move these to be accepted. Quite a difficult set of minutes to keep tabs on. Darren, and you've done it very well. I think there were many amendments and amendments of amendments. So thank you, and I'm more than happy to move it.
Okay, and anyone speak to this? Or have questions? Put motion on table. Motion is passed. All right, item 9, the mayoral minute. Recommendations that this item 0901 is received as information, and second, please. Councillor Hayden. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, with the second, the middle minute, I did want to ask, how the regional general manager Telstra advising Telstra conversation worked out with Taylor. 28th of June. And again on the 4th of July. Page 39.
Through the chair, I talked to,
That was correspondence, I think. Yeah. That was correspondence. We were just being advised that that's what was happening.
Okay.
Councillor Gibbon.
If I could, page 38, Mayor, the third item down, with correspondence forward to the, to Opta. Did we have any reaction to that about proposals for both sides of the argument to make presentation for Opta?
I provided the contact details of both groups. Of the delegate, you got any report on that?
No, I didn't attend last week's option meeting because I was ill, so. Nothing to report on that.
No, we don't have any. That's all I have for this minute.
Anyone else?
yeah, Mr. Mayor, on page 38, on the 26th of June, is that relationship with the subdivision condition, is it just one-off or a overall subdivision
In meetings.
Sorry, page 38.
in the meeting?
Meeting.
37?
37.
37. I can't pronounce his name, I'm sorry.
Other game, do things go.
So it's the one on the 26th. of June.
Yes.
Is that some of the consent or a whole subdivision consent or just that
Subdivision of a single block at Titanic.
Okay, no, that's, thank you.
Councillor Gibbon.
Sorry, I neglected. So, first of all, if I could, this is probably back in order, but page 39, got 5 rows up, sorry, 6 or 7 rows up, the meeting with the, from Robert Snotch, President Oberon against wind powers. Was there a time listed for that meeting?
6 o'clock, if I remember correctly.
Right. Just out of interest. And 2 above, maybe if you could. So we're saying Telstra has now linked up with Starlink to provide voice and voice plus broadband. And is that at a discounted price or the same price that Starlink is offering their services currently to?
That was mentioned, right? Pricing was not mentioned.
Okay. Fine, and I think it might have been mentioned before, maybe I didn't mention it, the situation, have we had any knowledge from that Telstra person or any others about what's happening with black screens?
No, as far as I'm aware, they have done the site surveys for the four blocks where people had agreed to be held. I don't think there has been any further movement on the term they used, distressed sites.
Distress.
Oh, whatever the term that was quite unusual about the fact that there was probably getting a certain site. I think that's gone away. And so we can take it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm meeting with Ultra and Mr. G and the Tuglow group on week. And we probably have a bit of a chat about that there as well.
Yes, in relation to that Black Spring, Telstra, we had a thorough look on some websites and it's got listed on the main Telstra website that it's
We've been advised of that.
no, no one has.
We'll follow it up tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You want to bring
Yeah.
the,
Councillor Carvey?
it's kind of whether the fleeting fact that they might want to bring 13 by 11.
Yep, we'll get rid of this one. Yeah. That's all right. Well, I'll finish with this.
Yeah.
All right. I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Motion is passed, and I'll bring forward 1311 now, moving a seconder. Councillor Carthy, Councillor McKibben. Thank you. All right, item 13. Land. Presentation is that council defer any support for development on land on the corner of Abercrombie Road and Campbell River Road until after a comprehensive land use strategy has been developed and advise the individual accordingly. Move to second. Councillor Hayden. Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move this motion as long as we can stay in touch with Mr. Scott and advise them in fact what council rezoning and any further land use strategy that might be going forward.
Councillor McCarthy.
Yeah, I take on board the presentation from Mr. Scott earlier on the night, but I thought we made it perfectly clear that the concept plan was required, and the land's not going anywhere, and I can't see where this is a problem. We're doing the land use strategy. No, it was supposed to be done in 2022, but it's going to be there, and if the strategy puts this bit of ground in and we don't forget it when we're doing it, it should make it easier for someone to develop it.
Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Noting I think it was a question or a presentation, or was it a presentation? Yeah. And it was pretty I couldn't ask the person making the presentation, Mr. Scott, because there was some reference, I thought, to Commonwealth and state funding. So what I would like to know, is the proponent able to fund this himself, or is he reliant on Commonwealth and state funding? I only became aware of that concept because of the part of the question. And I'm not sure whether this is dependent on state and federal funding, state and or federal funding, or whether it can proceed with the proponent's own funding, whether that's available or not.
I think we, at the moment, the
I know what the
recommendation is we defer this to we complete the land use strategy, which has not the objective, I think, of making sure that the zoning is particular.
So we changed the zoning from RU3, is that what we're,
Well,
we could.
that is an option.
Yeah, that is an option under the land use
And-
strategy. And when do we,
Making a much more amenable zoning.
so the comprehensive land use strategy is meant to be undertaken later this year, isn't it, November?
Through the chair, we're in the process of finalising the scope right now. So it's upon us now.
May I clarify?
No, you can't.
Okay.
This is about council. I'm sorry. What you need to do though is go and talk to the general manager.
Yeah.
Face to face and sort out whatever the issues are. What we're doing here is sorting out what is our approach to getting the appropriate zoning for that particular block.
Thank you.
So through the chair, as part of the comprehensive land use strategy, you will look at the whole LGA and you'll determine and go through a process whereby you will ask for comments, you'll engage with your communities, you'll go out to the villages and you'll look at that. The land use strategy will give an overall indication on what it wants to see develop on each individual parcel of our LGA. But it'll also look at individual village plans. So we'll look at those plans around what do we want for Blackstone? What do we want for Burrigo? What do we want for Mount David? What do we want for Oberon? there is a whole heap of strategic measures that we'll need to identify as part of that strategy. Given the time delay since this was resolved, it's been advised, it's been supported through a recommendation to council that we just put that component on hold until now is the time to give certainty around what we will expect in that area that we define as Black Springs moving forward.
Councillor Tucker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question on the timing of the land use strategy. When you say November, does that mean when work is going to start, or do we expect it all to be finished, all the consultations and everything finished by November?
Through the chair, the consultation process is a big one. So we'll bring you back a timeline. It'll be about 12 months, the process. It will not be you won't have it by November.
No, and that was the point of the question. I was surprised when you said November, because we're looking at a few months till November and then 12 months to complete the study, and that sort of stuff always tends to blow out as well. We could be 18 months to 2 years away before we can give definite answers, and Mr. Scott can start deciding what he wants to do
Within that time.
and I just wonder if he was keen to progress more quickly, is it possible to do anything to enable him to do something more quickly under the current land use strategy?
And through the current plan, Mr. Scott's been made aware of what he can and can't do. We've provided that information to him. At this point in time, it is a decision for council around, well, there's a risk taken by two individuals, one being council, one being the proprietor, that we previously endorsed as with our support for in principle. If he wants to progress on that, there is an avenue which he can go down in order to progress that, but there is still uncertainty. And I think that's what Mr. Scott was trying to indicate. He still has uncertainty in whether what he potentially wants to do can be supported by council. So by noting what he wants to do, by undertaking an appropriate study and getting it dealt with in the appropriate manner, you'll get some certainty around that process.
So if he was to decide that he would like to progress more quickly and try to get something happening within that time when the land use strategy is being done, and if we have adopted this and we say council defer any further support, have we then made it more difficult if he does want to progress more quickly?
Through the chair, I would say that if that was to occur, he would make that known to us and we'd send another report to council. At this point in time, because there hasn't been any action on the current resolution of council, a report was presented to say, well, now we're at a time where we can put some certainty around this, and that's what we're looking to do via this resolution. If the applicant, the proprietor, Mr. Scott, wants to continue on a path of providing information to council to give them an indication on whether they want to proceed or in fact sell, there is a process currently in place that he can follow.
So would it be more sensible to cut that the motion in half and just finish after the word Campbell River Road, so that we're not constrained by having to wait until after the land use strategy has been developed?
Through the chair, I'm giving council an indication on the way forward by doing a strategic planning analysis over the lot, which is why it's in there to start with. Council wants to amend it, it's up to council.
Are you proposing an amendment?
I'm not sure at the moment. I'll hear what others have to say.
Councillor McKibben?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am proposing an amendment, but I'm quite certain what to call the proponent. We could say my amendment null. I've written down so I'll speak to it first.
Through the chair, Mr. Scott's made himself available to be the proponent. You can call Mr. Scott.
All right. Council right to the proponent, Mr. Scott, generally supported, proponent, and ask for the provision of a concept design for this block within a period of 2 months. and with a timeline for an exchange of contracts. Should council agree to support the proposal?
Through the chair, I think
That's
that
the first. Second one would be famous, so it would be in concurrently. Council will will prepare a comprehensive land use strategy for Black Springs.
apologies. So through the chair, before we get too carried away, the current resolution of council, so the council was generally supportive
Yes.
of the proposal. Defer any decision of the sale of the land parcel on the corner of Abercrombie and Campbell's River Road to allow the prospective party to submit further details of their proposal to council, after which a further report be presented. I don't think that what you are, apart from the timing.
I'm asking, yes, I'm prepared to use that, to repeat that and say it has to be done within a period of 2 months.
For a period of 2.
Councillor Trimble?
With the chair, so we made that decision in March 22.
Yep.
And we've had nothing further. We're now in July 23.
Through the chair, I have had conversations with Mr. Scott, and we've talked about rationale behind and reasoning behind why there's been some delays. It comes back from my perspective in the conversations that I've had with the proponent, was that there is some uncertainty from in his area. So, well, I do all this and I spend some money through a planning consultant or an architect or something like that, and council turn around and say no. So there is some risk on that side. And I said, the only way that we can debunk the risk is by taking a step back and doing it through a strategic process. So whilst that may, like the 2 months may occur, the risk is still there and it's on the proposal.
So, Councillor McKibben, you're proposing an amendment. Can you bring that amendment up, please, Mr. Snell?
And I'm happy to use the previous wording, but with a timeline. And do you want to have a concept design in there? Because at least that'll clarify what information we need, what information we need.
What you've currently got. Now you're saying you want to use the old resolution words.
I think he wanted to mention, council defer and then add that in after, wasn't it? No.
And ask for the provision of, we asked for information before, I'm just asking for any more particular information. Because we said we generally supported previously.
Yep.
Council, well, we can say council generally supports the proposal,
We're supportive of the sale of the
the
land.
sale of the land for the purposes of a shop, isn't it? Or something.
Well, no, under the provisions of the current zoning, it has to be a service centre.
Right, have to be a service centre, right?
And I think that's where there is some risk around what that's
You know, yeah,
like a button stop mechanics. That's how this has progressed. Correct. Whereas if it was more generalised in a specific zone, it gives more flexibility to that.
Okay, so let's stick with Councillor McKibben and get this, what his proposed amendment is.
so if we were asking for information, what information apart from a concept design would we want? A DA?
No. Through the chair, we've never asked for a DA. We've asked for a concept plan which was better than what was previously supplied.
Yeah.
To give council an understanding on what's being proposed, and then consideration of whether they support the development.
Provision of a concept designs, so council can understand what is proposed, yeah.
Within the current.
Within a period of 2 months. Oh. In a period of 2 months. Yeah, and delete the rest, I think.
Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
No,
We're doing it.
no, we're doing concurrently, we're doing the.
We're doing that, you already have a resolution to do that now, so that, we don't need to.
And concurrence, it's for a new strategy for Blackford, yeah,
You don't need to,
Do I have a second?
you don't need to. Well, it's only that we've mentioned it,
through the chair, the reason for being mentioned to start with was to give a way forward to the deferral.
Mhm.
Now you're saying that we're giving you 2 months to provide the detailed information as it currently being. So you don't need a comprehensive land use strategy, because we've already resolved to do that.
we could say it is noted that a comprehensive, if you can, if you want to, I'm happy with it either way, if it's there or not, yes.
Can I have a second, please? Councillor Taylor, you speak to this?
I I think that is an improvement. It does leave you open to the possibility that if Mr. Scott does wish to move more quickly and rather than waiting for their own planning to be completed, at least there is a way forward for him. My recollection from the previous discussion on this, I might be wrong, but my recollection was that part of the reason we were a bit uneasy about it was that we were worried on Mr. Scott's behalf that he might go ahead and purchase the land, even if it was at a less than the market rate, and then find he wasn't able to do what he was hoping to do. And so at least if he does decide he wants to move more quickly and go through this process and provide a concept design, then yeah, at least that's a possibility. So I'm happy to support it.
Councillor Hayden?
I don't support the amendment. Mr. Scott doesn't want to build a service centre. He doesn't want to put a petrol station, truck stop, etc. in there. RU3 zoning is going to prevent him being able to erect what he wants to erect. So I won't support the amendment.
Anyone else wish to speak? Right, a reply.
Yes. I hear what councillor Hayden has said, obviously, but this has been sitting around for a long period of time. If an option for Mr. Scott is that in doing his comprehensive, in principle, concept design, he indicates the council that the current zoning RU3 will not satisfy his needs, but at least then we know what his position is in writing. We don't at the moment have anything in writing to say what his position is, so it'll force him to put the position he wants to put. Then we can consider that as another resolution later when we get that. The general manager will come back to us. But currently we have nothing from him. There's nothing in writing that says what he intends to do. I've got no idea. So it forces the issue. That's what I'm trying to do.
Thank you. Yeah. Right, right reply. So I'll put the amendments. All those in favour? Councillor McCarthy, you're in favour or against?
Yes.
And then, so everyone except Councillor McCarthy and Councillor Hayden in favour. So I'll put the amendment becomes the motion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Everyone in favour apart from Councillor Hayden. So that the amendment, that motion is passed. All right. Going back to item,
Going backwards.
10, there are no notices of motion. Item 11, council and delegate reports. The Oberon Arts Council meeting the 22nd of June 2023. The recommendation is that council receive and note the minutes of the Oberon Arts Council meeting held on the 25th of June 2023. Councillor Graham and Councillor Hayden. Councillor Graham.
I'd like to move that we receive and note the the minutes are attached, and I think they're fairly self-explanatory.
Councillor Hayden,
I was happy to step in and I've read the minutes, so nothing further to add.
you. Councillor McKibben,
Yes, I was pleased to read the minutes and also note the concern about the rotunda, and I understand that that was considered the common working party meeting last week, which I was unable to attend, apologies. So it's good that that's moving ahead.
okay, anyone else to speak? I'll put the motion, all in favour? Carried unanimously. Committee reports. Order Risk and Improvement Committee meeting on the 8th of June 2023. Recommendation of the council receive and note the minutes of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee held on the 8th of June 2023. Moving to second, Councillor Gibbon. Oh, Councillor Tucker.
Look, it's a very good meeting, and a lot was dealt with, and we appraised the Audit and Risk Committee of a number of issues, including the issues around the sports ground. The corporate card audit was the work of Zoe undertaking that was greatly appreciated by the members, and the minutes really reflect that and the other issues discussed. So more than happy to deal with those minutes. Thank you.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Briefly, I'm the alternate delegate, but I didn't attend on this occasion because both myself and Councillor McKinnon were going to be there. And it's not something you go to if you don't really have to. Yeah, I didn't come across anything in the minutes that concerned me, so happy to step in.
I'd just like to say at that meeting, we welcomed our brand new independent member, Kylie McFay, who improved her work on her first outing. She's a very astute individual and will be a great asset to the committee. And also, I'd like to give the Service Director a bit of a cover up because he's doing an excellent job in putting together the business papers and basically acting as the person on the ground for Eric. So he's doing a great job there. Anyone else wish to speak? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. Two. All right, item 12.2, Common Working Party meeting at the 11th of July 2023. Recommendation is that council receive and note the minutes of the Common Working Party held on the 11th of July 2023. 2, the Yarning Circle be located in the area of the existing well, subject to consultation and agreement being obtained from the Rotary Club of Oberon. 3, council utilise $75,000 from the 2023-24 town improvement allocation to the common to replace the existing rotunda with a similar structure to that which is currently exists in a powder coated metal finish. Item 4, the Common Working Party engaged the Oberon Garden Club to assist in the establishment of an Anzac Rose garden at the Oberon Common, and an allocation of up to $12,000 be provided from the 2023-24 town improvement allocation to the Common to fund the creation of the garden. And 5, the accessible playground be located adjacent to the existing junior playground, and that staff be requested to obtain additional quotes for a wheelchair swing option to be included. I'm moving a second, please. Councillor Hayden, Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation as it's pending, also on part 2 pending the agreement from the Rotary Club, and everything else there is in order as well for the minute.
Councillor McCarthy.
The report's pretty straightforward, except for the general business part. I still reckon the 2 piles of dirt that are down the common is still rubbish, and I'd like to see the spray out of the concrete still there, but you know, unless we're going to put that other stuff in the gully, it's still any hindrance to the maintenance staff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Gibbon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies because I wasn't able to make that meeting, but just on item 3, a council are going to, or the Commonwealth Party going to see the design of the revised rotunda before it's implemented? Just because there are, I sense very ugly powder coated metal structures. And obviously it's all our interest. The cost is very close to all of it, so we want to ensure it's a good design.
It's quality.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to suggest, and otherwise, I mean, it could be done in timber with proper stirrups and everything, but I understand that it's more of a maintenance issue, but let's make sure it is an attractive and appropriate structure.
Through the chair,
Aesthetically pleasing, thank you.
through the chair, the process will be, we will go away and do what the recommendations are and report back to the Common Working Party with those options. So then we probably will be accountable.
Thank you.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Instead of not speaking against any of the recommendations, I just wanted to express mild surprise that the location chosen for the yarn is just simply because I would have thought that for that sort of purpose, they would have preferred a slightly more secluded and private space. Whereas that location that's been suggested is, you know, it's quite busy, tourists coming past to go to toilets or sitting nearby and having lunch, and I'm just surprised, but that's all I wanted to say.
Noted. Anyone else? All right, I'll motion all open vote. Passed unanimously. All right, the reports for decision, item 13.1. Food establishment inspection policies 33201 update. And the recommendation is that council place the revised food establishments inspection policy 3201 on public exhibition for 28 days, and submissions be invited to council during that period. If no submissions are received within the exhibition period, the policy will be adopted as presented and delegate to the general manager, delegate to the general manager be provided to amend any minor changes proposed. Councillor Hayden. Councillor McKibben. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendations part of updating our policies going forward. So I'm happy to move that.
Councillor McKibben.
Yes, and the change, I'm more than happy to second it, and I note the changes that are on 60 and 61, and they all seem abundantly reasonable and appropriate.
Anyone else?
No, I think the general manager from market.
Anyone else got a we can speak to this? No, I'll put the motion, all those in favour. No, please. All right, 13.2, tender for supply and installation of guard rail safety barriers. C 2023-10. Recommendations that council nominate the open tendering method as prescribed in accordance with clause 166A of the local government regulations 2005 for the supply and installation of guardrail safety barriers for a period of 3 years, commencing September 23 to 30th of August 26. And 2, at the conclusion of the tender period, a report will be provided at the next available ordinary council meeting in 2023 for selection of suitable qualified contractor. Move in second, please. Councillor McKibben, Councillor McKibben, Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. More than happy to move this recommendation. And I note it's for a period of 3 years, so that will allow us some time to utilise, and we'll have to come back to council every year over it. And my only question was, and I'm surprised that the joint organisation hasn't got something in place for this yet.
I'll bring it up.
It might be a matter to raise.
I'll talk to the
Yes.
CEO.
Yes. Anyway, I'm more than happy to move it. Thank you.
Nothing much further to add. I'm happy to see the time frame put out for 3 years. And the rest is just compliance, the way we have to go about the tenders. So I'm happy to second it.
You, anyone else? I'll put the motion, all those in favour. Motion is passed unanimously. Item 13.3. truck and plant tender for truck and trailer replacement. The recommendation is that council nominate the open tendering method as prescribed in accordance with clause 166B of the Local Government Regulations 2005, seeking written tender submissions for one bogie drive truck and tipper and one 3-axle tipping trailer, brackets truck and dog, in accordance with the tender C 2023/11. Upon completion of the mandatory 21-day tender period, a further report will be provided to the council for tender to be terminated. Moving a seconder. Councillor Trembath, Councillor Trembath.
I'm happy to move recommendation as stated. It's part of our business to do this and it's already been done.
You, Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing further to add, part of our operational plan, and again, it's obligation under our tendering process to be doing it this way. Happy to second it.
Anyone else?
Just a clarification, I thought there's a preferred model to a vehicle that was requested, that was all, and doesn't sort of state that in the report. And that was done by a process of elimination of what was suitable.
That was a tender evaluation, which was for a similar, that was last year.
Okay, anyone else? Put a motion, all those in favour? Passed unanimously. 13.4, truck mounted road maintenance machinery replacement tender T 2023/12. The recommendation is that council nominate the open tendering method as prescribed in accordance with clause 166B of the Local Government Regulations 2005, seeking written tender submission for one truck mounted road pavement maintenance machine in accordance with tender T 2023/12. Upon completion of the mandatory 21-day tender period, a further report will be provided to council for tender determination. Moving to seconder. Councillor Trembath.
Waving.
Oh, sorry. Councillor McCarthy was about to put his hand up. Okay. All right.
I'd like to move the recommendations and before business as usual, it's part of our massive replacement program for 23/24.
Councillor Trembath.
Happy to second and I think the same. Non-paid.
Councillor Gibbon.
Thing is, there are a couple of questions. Do you anticipate that the existing Paveline machine will therefore have negligible value when we sell it because you can't obtain spare parts for it as the company that produces them has gone into liquidation? That's the first question.
Through the chair, look, we don't know at this stage. It's very hard to determine what the market will dictate, but certainly there are still a lot of Paveline branded machines out there.
So I can't recall how much we anticipated the second-hand value of this unit to be. I think we did have it in the budget figures.
Yeah, I don't fully that I have, but yeah.
So the changeover of 300. So we're anticipating at 100,000 for this, or you got any idea of the range for what we might be a new unit?
At this point in time, I can't guarantee what sort of price could bring. Look again, the Paveline company has gone into liquidation. I believe it has been purchased again.
All right.
So it's very hard to understand exactly where this may go at this point in time. So we just need to look at our options on this tender out.
And I know that Paveline provides us with a quick and ready means of filling potholes, basically. Obviously, within this council, and we've questioned on occasions as to the duration or the longevity of potholes filled with it, but it is a quick fix. So we're still of the view, because I know some other councils have moved away from similar machines because they say that it doesn't, it only provides a very temporary fix. We're happy that it's value for money.
Yes, through the chair, look, certainly I think it's a machine that is value for money. A good operator, machine is only as good as the operator, and I think that, yeah, certainly it can perform as well as, what a cold mix batch will do. Again, it is a temporary batch, remembering, its capabilities, so it's not actually a bitumen, road resheeting machine by no means.
No.
It's a temporary cold emulsion batch.
Okay, that's all I have to ask.
Anyone else? Councillor McCarthy?
Just a question on it. I wasn't at the last works meeting, but have we looked into the situation where we go back to the hot mix with the conveyor belt, which the RMS looks as if they've gone back to in many occasions? Where you have someone on the shovel out the back?
Look, again, certainly we haven't gone away. I've actually implemented, certainly cold mix, packing, so there is a combination of repairs. Certainly something we've had to undertake during the recent, road damage sustained by wet weather of the last few years. A flow con, with which we're talking to, is a cold mix. It can be also a hot mix, type mechanism where you can, as you say, off the conveyor belt, fix, pothole repairs on roads. So it's not out of the realm of, you know, a tendering process here that we are asking for a maintenance placement. So Flowcon, which is a business similar to Paveline, by all means can make a submission.
Hey, thank you.
Councillor Tucker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow on from that, if we did get submission for different types of hot mix or cold mix, we would have to be very careful about supply of the material because, you know, there's no supply available in Oberon and there would be the risk that we'd lose 3/4 of the day while the truck was driving in to have it and back a couple of times a day. And that was always the problem when we looked at that previously. But for the benefit of other.
All right, I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Thank you. 13.5, policy 3603. Swimming pool barrier inspection program update. Recommendation is that council place the revised swimming pool barrier inspection program policy 3603 on public exhibition for 28 days, and submissions being invited to council during that period. No submissions are received within the exhibition period, but it will be adopted as presented. We delegate to the general manager to amend any minor changes proposed. Moved and seconded, councillor Tucker. Councillor Hayes. Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, as far as I can see, there's no particularly substantive changes. It seems to be mostly routine things that are necessary as a result of changes to legislation, and happy to recommend it.
Happy to second, just policy upgrade. The beginning, thank you.
Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question, there's a reference somewhere in a few places here to spas, are they to be inspected as well? Anyone who comes spa?
Yep, I read some done here.
No, I don't, but I know there are a lot of people with spas, I'll be very surprised to have them inspected.
Councillor McKibben, I have learned, you have a locked lid. You don't need to put a barrier around the spa.
Ah. And it hasn't got to be inspected?
Apparently, though.
It does have to be inspected.
Through the chair, that to clarify that it's got a lock lid.
A lockable.
And it's got to be inspected how often? Once every.
Through the chair, the bar needs to be registered as the pool does, as a swimming pool does. They only need to be inspected if property is being up to sales or it's a rental property. They need to be inspected every 3 years. Generally, and the other options are if we have available staff who do running inspections, we'll undertake that.
So if you have one of these bars with, you know, nice wooden things around it, you still got to have a lock. If you haven't got a lockable thing, got to have a fence around it, is that right?
Yeah.
I'm learning new things all the time.
I learned as well.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's probably interesting for a number of us, because well, I don't have a spa, but I was Yeah, I did look at one stage of putting it in.
Of course you don't.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? I'll put the motion, all those in favour. Motion passed unanimously. Item 13.6. On-site sewage management policy, new policy. Recommendation of the council place the on-site sewage management policy on public exhibition for 28 days and submissions be invited to council during that period. If no submissions are received within the exhibition period, the policy will be adopted as presented. And we delegate to the general manager to amend any minor changes proposed. Moving to seconder, councillor Hayden. Councillor Trember, councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation, more policy upgrades, thank you.
Yeah.
Nothing further to add.
Councillor Trember.
I'm happy to second it and I have nothing to add.
You know. Councillor McKibben.
Thank you. So this is, Mr. Mayor, so this applies to all septic tanks, I assume. And as I understood it, council had to approve previously the installation of any septic tanks anyway, but this is by formalising the policy, is it?
And also other on-site wastewater management. There are others.
For instance,
Aerating systems.
oh, aerating systems, yes, right, okay. Okay, I'm happy with this. It meets all the requirements, it is in accordance with all the requirements, state government requirements and legislation. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor McCarthy.
Where does this policy sit when you're allowed to pour your own septic tanks that complied with the pump? Does it impinge on those people that are allowed to put their own septic tanks in at the time?
Through the chair, I'll defer to the planning director, but my,
Through the chair. It would be based on systems that have got an approval through council and or approval to operate. So if there are existing systems that were previously installed by an owner without approval or without any consent being required, then we would like the owners indicate that we may come and inspect in the future, but it wouldn't be on a program.
Okay,
No.
so these are the only ones that got council approval.
Through the chair, I'd say yes.
Okay, well, thank you.
through the chair, basically all of them, like the local government act's been around from 1919 and the Environmental Planning Assessment Act 1979. So most of them, sure, if they're illegal, then they're illegal.
Well, I know it's over Hills Estate, that when that started, you're allowed to do your own septic system. And you were able to pour your own tank. And I noticed the council, when they inspected one out at Mount Geelong, the actual tank was hand poured and Jane Wilson on the day accepted the tank, but wouldn't accept the rubble drain, but the tank was handmade too.
Through the chair, but that would have been through an approval that was provided by council to say, yes, we accept that.
I don't know if it's been approved by council, but anyway, I just think that might have some ramifications of some existing ones. Right? Not that they mightn't comply, they still might comply, but they haven't got that AS number on them, that's all.
Councillor McKibben.
Mr. Mayor, I recall, might have been many years ago, a letter went round to landholders asking how many septic tanks they had on their property or something similar. And I maybe had to identify the location and send it back to council. And I thought they were at that stage, maybe not deemed approved, but noted. Is that correct? I can't even recall. I mean, from my perspective, I think I've been Abercrombie, Evans and Oberon. It could have been a previous council as well. I don't know, but I do recall a letter going round. So in a lot of places, I would assume have had septics in from the early 1900s.
through the chair, so the septic tanks all the last forever, if you leave it as that. And if you design them accordingly, they last for a period of time. And then.
All right,
We're trying to
getting
help.
into the detail. Thank
All
you.
right. Let's see, I'll pop to speak to this, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? You happy with that? I didn't put your hand one way or the other.
I didn't put your hand up. I voted against it.
All right, Councillor McCarthy voted against all the councillors for. 13-7. All right. MOU for Oberon Council and the Oberon Multi-Purpose Service Temporary Evacuation. The recommendation of the council endorsed the proposed MOU for signing by the general manager. Second, please. Councillor Killen, Councillor Hayden.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This seems reasonable on the basis of the locality involved with the MPS have an evacuation centre and the library and community centre noting the proximity to, I'm more than happy with it. Thank you.
I'm happy to second in itself.
All right, I'm going to speak against this particular recommendation. This document we received from the MPS with absolutely no opportunity to review it. It leaves some significant gaps. And I'm going to propose that council council review the document and provide an amended document to consideration. Another second, please. Councillor Tucker.
Yeah, I would continue to heavily vote in favour, but I'm not aware of what the particular concerns are, and you might like to, to briefly outline what those.
The main concerns are that this document was received as a done deal from the NPS. They did not engage in any consultation with us, except at the initial event when we said we're happy to go in, have an MOU. And for example, that discussion that was always going to be for no more than 24 hours. Now that doesn't appear in here anywhere. The scope of activities, short-term accommodation, provide shelter, toilet facilities, water and security. It doesn't mention care. Who does the care and who does the feeding of those people who have been evacuated? They're the sorts of issues that I am not comfortable with, and that's why I put that proposal.
Oh, Mr. Mayor. Sorry if I'm wrong. I had assumed because the recommendation is that council endorsed the MOU.
Yeah, I should have.
That this had been reviewed by Oberon Council and was seen as acceptable because otherwise it wouldn't be, the recommendation would be endorse the proposed MOU with the comments that are listed there. So I'm a bit flabbergasted that that's not explained.
Why I put up the amendment.
I understand the amendment, but I'm still flabbergasted it came up without a recommendation to be negotiated. I'd assumed it had been discussed. There's nothing in here to indicate it was only given a 24 hours notice or.
Well, 24 hours notice, but it is not a document which was crafted by two organisations in collaboration.
Yes,
To understand.
no understanding of that in the common thing, yeah.
I support your recommendation. I actually had some questions. I wasn't sure where I was going to go with this. But
So you're reporting now we're talking about the amendment.
the amendment, sorry, I support the amendment. Because I did actually have, I looked at it and it's a bit light. Didn't really cover much. There was financial implications, but again, it didn't sort of give any detail as to who would be responsible for those financials and where are they currently, what's the evacuation point at this? So there's no evacuation point, we just become an evacuation point because it's got a lovely, beautiful big room that could fit lots of people in.
Look, I have no trouble with that concept. I just have trouble with the lack of detail.
It's very, there's no detail in it at all. So yes, I absolutely put it in.
Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm probably voting against the recommendation. Now, for two reasons, the reasons that you've outlined and the new information that's been given to them. But also, it doesn't appear that there's been any consultation with the Emergency Services Committee or any other emergency facilities that have been designated through the state emergency services or obligations. So I think it's probably a little bit hasty, and somebody's got an idea that that'd be a lovely place to have it, which, probably is. And I don't disagree with that, but I think there needs to be a little bit more clarification on quite a few things and some consultation with some other stakeholders.
Can you bring up that? Member, please? Be with that. Anyone else got any minor changes they might want to make to that proposal?
Not saying, but I just make one further comment because I sort of cut off when I was speaking to it earlier. It's not really directly about this as such, but it just did make me think, and following on from Councillor McKechnie about the local emergency management committee. I remember from my days that as part of our overall plan that the committee and council had to adopt an emergency operations centre to be used any time that the RFS building was unavailable, and for at one stage this here and there was adopted as the secondary emergency operations centre. I don't know if it still is, or if not, I don't know where it is, but now that we have that new facility, I was just going to suggest that it might be worth going back to the LEMC at the next meeting and just saying, well, regardless of where we've currently got adopted, this would be perfect.
Through the chair. That's already been
That would
done.
be perfect.
That's already been undertaken.
It is, thank you.
The issue that we find is that if there is a declared disaster or a declared emergency, it's showing the whole town, and if we've got MOUs with everyone, who gets it first? So they're the things that LEMC would determine.
Councillor Hope.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could expand on your amendment a little bit more to state something like to that council review the proposed MOU and expand upon it and discuss with the emergency services experts or something.
Okay,
But that might be a little
as
bit
we
too
review,
brief.
the MOU, it's the job of the general manager, he's well aware of the shortcomings we discussed yesterday and today. So I'm happy that he knows what to discuss, and I think that's been highlighted here.
Or should it not say only MPS and emergency services?
No, this is an MOU between us and the MPS, for them to evacuate their residents and patients.
But doesn't the emergency SBS have to get involved to help move in?
That's not We're just saying, we've got a space where we're happy to put these people, but we need to care for them and feed them more.
That's a huge issue. Hospital burns down and not get a long time.
Well, that's the issue. This is the place that take care of them for 24 hours or so, and then move on to other places.
So just through the chair, this MOU needs to be read in conjunction with the emergency management plan, and the things that you have raised may be in that plan. We just haven't seen that plan to be able to get certainty around that.
So I'm going to put the amendment. All those in favour? Amendment becomes the motion. All those in favour? Motion is passed unanimously. Okay. Item 13.8, the village fund. Village fund project request from Burriga. On recommendation of the council approve the request for Burriga District Community Association. Utilise the balance of the village fund totaling $25,570 for works. And two, transfer the 23-24 financial year Burriga District Community Association section 356 donation of $5,000 to the Burriga Village Fund to support the project. Councillor McKibben, Councillor Hayden, Councillor McKibben.
Yes, Mayor and I declare that I am the council representative on this committee. The record, but I'm more than happy to move the recommendation in two parts. Noting that the recommendations are correct. And just to note for members of council that there are two issues and they are related. One of the problems is that there is water ingress under the hall and that hence creates the environment for termite. So this works will involve preventing ingress of the water to help provide a less palatable environment for the termites as one of the issues. So both have to be done in conjunction and that requires, that is one of the major issues to stop the water getting in under the hall. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yes,
Councillor Hayden.
I'm happy to second the recommendation. There is quite a bit of moisture and damage out there in the hall, and this will be this will greatly assist in the repatriation of that damage and getting that fixed.
Thank you. Councillor Tucker.
Thank you. So, I think about this report and the next one, I'm confused with, when we've discussed the village fund, I've always been under the impression that those funds did not accumulate. If the $5,000 per year wasn't spent in a year, it was lost, but that is not to be the case according to the report. Can we just get some
That's why we've got a resolution.
You are correct. You are correct. However, when a project is identified and a resolution of council to carry over those funds is agreed to, that is when council makes the decision to accumulate those funds. Both those organisations over the past 5 years have asked for those funds to be accumulated to fund a project. One of them is progressing, the other one wants to reallocate those to somewhere else.
all right, so it would probably make more sense simply to allow them to accumulate.
Through the chair, that is a further anything else to be.
There's a lot of.
Anyone else? Speak? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Motion is passed. 13.9, the village fund project request from O'Connell. Recommendation to council transfer the current allocation of village funds to the O'Connell locality. Development of projects within the O'Connell recreation ground in accordance with the request from the O'Connell Valley Community Group. Councillor Trimbar, Councillor Watt, Councillor Trimbar.
And I'm the council delegate, but I support the recommendation and just to speak to previous comments regarding funds rolling over. A lot of this was based on the timing of COVID and trying to get quotes, and the money was determined to be much better spent in the rec ground, where it will get a lot more use, because originally it was to be in Hassel Park, and it's more than amply supplied with sheds, shelters, playgrounds, and this is much better to put it into the rec ground where we get a good use for the community.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Watt.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to support it as well, and nothing really to add to that.
Anyone else? Councillor Carter.
I'm happy with the proposal, but we should acknowledge that the money provided for the flat shelter should not, no more requests should be received to modify that. So that they go back to the peak roof shelter. In other words, they can't have a double dip and come back and say, well, we never got the we didn't all vote for it, if you get what I mean. So I acknowledge that funds go where they request to, but it should be acknowledged that they are not going ahead with that shelter anymore. Funds were provided for.
I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Ms. Hyde, please. All right, now, as I said, before the meeting started, I'm going to propose that we move into a committee of the whole. That process was suspend the code of meeting practice so that we can actually have a fairly informal but structured discussion about what we might want to do with the local road and community infrastructure money that's become available. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Gibbon, Councillor Hayden. All those in favour? Unanimous. So we are now acting as a committee of the whole. And we've suspended the code meeting practice for the time being. Okay, there is the business papers provide us with some scenarios. I think there are a couple of items, in my view, that are probably fairly key. The first one is the deficit reduction by allocating $190,000 to various projects within the roads area. But beyond that, I think there is a significant amount of leeway to where we go. Is everyone happy with that? 190,000 of the headline?
I'm happy with the deficit one, yeah.
That's good.
We need to get rid of that.
Do this on the line with the mayor.
Absolutely, yep.
And we'll need to come up with an amendment, but it's not an amendment just yet, it's just. It's in the committee of the whole that you will resolve.
Yeah, we're still recording.
Yeah,
It's already still recording.
Yeah. You haven't asked anyone to leave yet.
And it's not confidential. This is watching the sausage being made.
Resolution, council, or, yeah,
Budget deficit reduction.
yeah, certainly.
Well, you better say the budget, 23, 24, 24, yeah, you have done here.
We need to say that, we need to replace council.
To replace gas lines or. Roads.
You know what I'm.
Okay, so what's that here is $190,000 and replace council's own source contribution to various projects. Of reducing our $188,000 deficit that we have due to the levy, reducing that to zero. But we still get all the things we want with the rest. Okay,
Now
now,
you've just, so what this has done is cleared your deficit. So what you said to your community you're going to do, you are now being able to do it. It also gives you some flexibility around when you make efficiencies along the way, gives you some collateral.
So we had a 33,000 deficit, and then we had this emergency services levy whack on us. That came to the 180,000 deficit, 88,000, that's 6,000. So we're now wiping that. And that's what we told the community when we went out. We were going to have a 33, then we've had the emergency services levy, but we should be able to reduce it on the basis of this grant. And that's now what we're, that's the third part of what we're doing.
Look at efficiency to be able to reduce the deficit.
Do more than 190 and go into surplus?
Through the chair.
That's better to reduce the hub debt.
It's 188,000, so you in fact are going to surplus $2,000. Yeah.
and general experience is that We budget very conservatively, and at the end of the year, we're always effectively in a surplus against what we're doing. Okay, so that's the first item.
Yeah, and just picking up on councillor McKibben's point, I certainly wasn't proposing that the whole lot go into having an enormous surplus. I was just asking the question. But I do actually agree with reducing the hub loan. The amount suggested there, I'm okay with, because at least doing that will mean that it's not, we don't end up over the next few years with the town funding the lot that is that substantial amount that is effectively coming from everybody. The only question really in my mind is in the next paragraph, the recommended nominations for projects under phase 4 and just which projects to support there. So the 296,774.
Okay, so let's discuss this one you put on the table.
First, I would support principle put up by Councillor Tucker of 434,900 reduction in the Oberon library loan. And I don't know, I think we should get the view of councils on that first, because that'll give us the second leg.
Absolutely. So, starting with Councillor Tucker said yes, 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 yes.
I think,
Yeah.
I think that is pretty much unanimous. Fine.
I still want to know, we got an allocation there of funds to the road.
yeah, we have
Yeah,
296,774.
Okay, so
That we haven't discussed that.
library one.
There's sugar in that, Andrew. Do you have sugar?
No.
Oh, well, it's got half.
Just give it a moment while.
You've got to sweeten me up.
He doesn't need sugar.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Yep, that sounds fine.
Yeah.
All right, everyone happy with what's up there on the?
That's half.
All right.
So does that, what does that make the current, does that make the hub loan to what?
850 minus 434.
So we got 400 still. 400 still.
While Matt and Sharon are talking about that, there is no further opportunity to reduce the hub loan.
What are you getting at?
Well, the hub's now built.
Yeah.
You can't give
No.
up, you can't replace. This opportunity was based on just beautiful timing.
Yeah.
There is no further opportunity. So instead of the 1,287,000, you are now down to 400,000. So it's been a fairly robust and astute council decision in making that.
So we couldn't put the 296,000 there.
There is one thing that you,
But we have a problem with our roads.
no. Yeah.
That falls under phase 4 and.
We can't do it.
Phase 3.
Because we've been able to reallocate between 3 and 4.
That's
right.
Okay.
As well as that, what you've also done is allowed Chris another
Yes.
18 months to do the project that he's currently on a
Yes.
roller coaster to work out what to do with it.
Environmentally effective.
Yeah. The other thing is, while we're doing that, it doesn't mean that we can't do the projects this year. It's just give us more time to be able to complete.
Yes.
Yeah, it's still, we're just doing the legalities behind that, you understand?
Request.
So just those numbers that you see in front of you now is just how we need to go about moving that money. That is reallocating phase 3 to the hub and moving phase 4. The unspent phase 3 into phase 4.
Is that wording correct at the end of number 3? We seek a request.
An official variation request. Yeah, that's what we have to do.
Yes,
Yeah.
And we will get it automatically.
We've been told that it's acceptable.
Right.
Yeah, lodger.
A lodge, yeah.
That's fine. So everyone happy with that? Third, which tidy some of the sausage up, the grant authority will require that.
Yeah.
Yeah, now you make a sausage. You don't want to say it.
So that now leaves
You know,
approximately $300,000.
So do we have to put that figure in that third one or
No, we're just reallocating the remaining phase 3, which is dealt with at the. Now it's over to you, council.
not? Could I ask what the Oberon Library and Community Centre phase 2 involves? Because I forgot. Oh, that's the Robert Hooper.
That would be to tidy the
Do we?
Robert Hooper. No,
No,
no.
we really do need to give that an allocation.
But does it need a?
Are you
I
gonna?
mean,
So we have-
unfortunately, the Robert Hooper is, you know, it doesn't really fit in with the existing building particularly well.
But it's gonna be a
So I'm
book
not sure if-
reseller when schools get in there to resell books and that. But this is still be a meeting room and then.
But it's still quite shameful that we're now put money to a building.
I
that should
know.
have been pulled down and integrated into the bigger building.
That's why I'm
Lifting on the
asking
pin.
whether we should just leave it.
Yeah,
I don't think that's enough money to do what you need.
No, I don't.
We, through the chair, the things that we were looking at in that phase would simply be a painting of the outside of the building. So in fact, change the colour of the external finish, replace the wall, roof to a line similar to that, and do some internals, being a toilet and the like, so we can.
So you wouldn't be better just painting the roof?
good.
How
paint
much
the
would
roof.
it cost to demolish?
Through the chair, I wouldn't be demolishing it now.
Could we not allocate, say, $50,000 towards it, just to do some internal shelving and some touch-ups?
This is through the, to be honest with you, we've done our bit. I told you, if you want to put 50,000 to do that, that would be a discussion that you have.
Is
I'd
that,
rather integrate it into the existing building. I think it's way to be that. It's a big
I think
thing.
it's gonna, so Katie says, I think it's gonna account for Graham thing, I think it's gonna cost more.
more than 50?
Well, I think,
To do what needs to be done to it.
What?
Some blue board on the outside.
The cheapest,
Well, no, to integrate it.
No, I mean, just so that it would be workable.
we can't integrate that building anymore.
No.
This will not.
So why can't we allocate an amount of money so that we can tidy it up and possibly put some shelving inside? If schools are gonna use that to resell and stuff, can't we do something to make it?
well, I thought schools were gonna put something.
But they're gonna do that.
You can buy second-hand shelving and throw books on, I mean, I don't think second-hand shelving.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The projects listed there in the middle of page 103 are all worthy, and the suggestions that have been made are worthy. Another suggestion for the hub might be to look at the dividing walls in that big space that have to be left out of the original project. That might be another suggestion. The visitor centre is worthy. Sports ground upgrade is worthy, and I'm sure there's a long list of other worthy projects that we could consider.
Speaking of sporting grounds, the one thing that I have a problem with at the moment with phase 1 of the sport ground is the absence of netball.
And I totally agree.
And I think we need to allocate some money to get at least 2 courts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with it.
I agree with that, we know our costing on that line.
So through the chair, we've tried to do a rough one, and it would firstly depend on your finish.
Yeah.
At a concrete slab at say 60 metres wide by 30 metres long, which would see, well, I think it'd see 3 courts. I don't think a netball court is more than 20 metres long per league. Well,
Damien.
you would think that Damien would know, wouldn't you?
Is that with soft asphalt on the top or just concrete?
So it'd be I believe it should be a finished, like a painted concrete with the lines and And,
Yeah, have you got,
absolutely, like we, that's correct.
Exactly right.
Or equally, others can come out here.
So what-
and play.
So what's the dollar figure? A rough,
So,
rough order of magnitude.
so based on Chris's quick notes and our conversation at 4:55, Chris is saying a couple of 100,000 you would need to do the concreting, make them the standard that you'd be happy with. But we can't, it's only a best guess. It's based on the cost of concrete and colour in it, and then getting someone to do a assessment on that.
I don't think we should be neglecting the hockey side of it either.
No,
Because that's one of the fastest and biggest growing
I agree with you.
sports for young people in Oberon. at the
and we
moment.
have one of the most talented young.
Well, we've got a
players
state,
in the state.
state player there.
And we kind of need
Which,
a
you
state.
know, but each of, they're both very much growing popular
Absolutely.
sports for young people.
And they'll bring
And I
more
think we
to
should
Oberon.
not favour one in front of the other. I think they're both equally important.
The issue is going to be is that 3 basketball netball courts is, let's call it $300,000 versus $1 million to get a synthetic hockey pitch.
Yeah.
There will be other grants coming up down the track that we can get hockey in that and get a really.
But I agree with hockey.
So there is a hockey.
I think there's more kids playing hockey than.
I,
anything else.
Yeah, probably is
the
at this
hockey
stage.
is really valuable. I agree with you.
You know, like, yeah, but we should be encouraging the young ones to,
Yeah, hockey.
in more participation
But
in.
then
the
that's
game.
not gonna cover the fee for hockey, is it? Really? And you
Should we think about allocating a larger lump to the sporting complex and leaving that as a decision to come back to once we've got some. Copy.
What I was going to propose.
I'd like to see it 200 and
I was going to say, could we leave the 296,774, and so we've agreed that figure, but if gentlemen come back to we have to allocate.
So what, under
Just as it's worded there.
under this.
200
Variations are quite easy to be
Sports
undertaken.
complex
So
stage two.
we will need to submit phase 4 application so we can work with scope.
Yeah, we can work out. well.
But if council wanted to do a broad allocation to the sports ground, it would not be a problem to do variations down the track. It's just we would need to put this all forward so we can move some existing scope around, but we could come back with more detailed costings to confirm that this program does seem quite a variation.
Council executive comments about a minute ago, which you're gonna have to remember to put in a resolution if that's the way you go, is exactly the way it should be. It needs to relate to stage 2. Of our deal with Borg in that regard. What I will say is that from the program that I'm working for with stage 1, it will go a long way to also assist that stage 1, because as part of the funding that we're given under the blur funding for, it include netball at the time. So if we went back and said, well, now we're going to fund the netball for whatever, that would certainly be something that is considered quite nicely by the state.
I'm happy with what.
I agree. Just keep it relating to stage 2 and then come back with the relevant project.
Okay, I'm just gonna play.
Okay, I just wanted to ask, when we go into stage 2 or any stage thereafter on the sports field, is that using whoever we as a council want to use, or do we have to still use the same person?
It'll be completely independent of that
Right.
and with us.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, because, yeah, no.
I'd go as far to say,
That's a
we should have
clarification.
moved, we should.
Yeah.
Keep that separate. Yeah.
Council Puckett.
Thank you.
And then Councillor Kibben.
Firstly, just to make sure I've got my understanding correct, the 296,774, not all of that is available to go into these community building improvements. At least 150 has to go into road projects. if I'm following correctly.
Through the chair, because you've moved the loan.
Yeah.
The hub loan, you are basically doing the environmental roads as a replacement. And that substantially covered the 377. In fact, it
337.
434 and 190.
All right, so we don't have that restriction on how we allocate that to non.
Not now that you've made the other two recommendations above.
Okay, well, even with that being the case, I still think we should have consider roads projects, particularly after in our budget, we adopted scenario 2, which meant all money into reseals, and we're not doing the usual upgrading of unsealed roads to sealed, and I'm still not suggesting that we should do that, but I think we should be considering other roads projects in the Guernsey in budget. And I have a number of suggestions, things that I have raised in the past that haven't got up. So one would be more reseals, another one would be upgrading the causeway on Sewell Street Road. We decided that, well, we adopted Bailey's Lane. I personally felt Sewell Street Road would have been a higher priority, so we could consider that project. We could consider the section of Dog Rocks Road that is suffering and deteriorating because it didn't get a final seal. And the figures I was given previously from memory were somewhere in the order of 170,000 to 200,000 to fix that up before we completely lose it. And another one would be the intersection of Sloggett Road coming onto Abercrombie Road. So I would suggest they are also worthy to include on the list for consideration along with these other community building projects. And Councillor Graham was right. I was going to talk about roads.
Okay, so where do we sit now with
Through the chair, based on the current consensus of 1, 2, and 3. That is, I believe that you had complete consensus over 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Number 4 was, I'm going to go with Councillor McKechnie's recommendation, but you now have further consideration for road projects from Councillor Tucker. This is where you would need to come to a consensus on what you think is right. However, there's more.
So is there consensus across the board on the dot point 4? We want basically $300,000 to stage 2 of the 47.
We have to. What about building a new dog pen?
That all the you're suggesting that all the remaining 296 go to this sports complex?
What's written there?
All right, well, no, we don't have consensus.
Okay, that's right. Doesn't have to be consensus. Sorry, it doesn't have to be absolute consensus.
No,
Yeah.
it may well be majority. I think there are more urgent and important things.
So the call 300,000 at dot point 4.
I've obviously agreed to it. I think this is a once in a lifetime project for not only us, but the community, the wider community, and the more priority and the more assistance we can give it, I think we should. We've already, by reducing the loan on the hub, we've already allocated just under 600,000 more to the roads budget.
Yeah.
Like, that's a fair whack. I agree with Councillor Tucker's 2 of his projects. I think they're very worthy, but they can be funded out of one of them could be funded out of part of that 600,000 that we're now adding to the roads budget. And still leave 300,000 to go to stage 2 in the sport.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So Andrew?
Look, I think if the technical services director believes that he can create the courts for lack of a with a rough order of magnitude of 200,000, say it like that. Then I would be suggesting, I don't think that the additional amount of, let's say, 96,774, and I'm not holding the technical services director for exactly the rough order of magnitude at 455 this afternoon, I understand that. But maybe what would be appropriate is to say that an amount be allocated from the 206,774 to stage 2 of the Oberon Sports Complex, being the netball courts, and any remaining be allocated, and the council be advised as to what the remainder is, which will be allocated to nominated road projects, because the 96,000 is not unfortunately going to build us hockey fields. We all know that. And then, I think that what we're saying is that probably 296 is in excess of what we need for the netball courts. It may not be, but if we give some flexibility there, I don't know.
Through the chair, based on that recommendation right now, we will then go away and cost the netball courts. If he comes back at $150,000, we will come back to you and say, just found you $150,000.
Yeah.
So that's,
We will absolutely do that regardless.
Okay.
We don't have a choice.
Right.
so you're happy, Andrew?
Yes, happy that.
I'm happy to go to the netball courts and finish the job.
Yep.
And the balance of the money go to the perimeter of the hockey fields. In other words, we start setting that up. So if we've got any money left over. And I'd like to see if our engineer could not go down to the Fish River and have a look where Steve Walsh done a driveway, and he added the ochre, and the finish is absolutely great. The blue ochre. And I don't think you'll have any trouble then with paint and whatever. We've got that tradesman in town, or it might be someone else who's going to do the same thing, but there's some options out there. But I think, and I'll probably get shot when I get home, but the hockey has the ability to train at the tennis centre at the moment, and it's indoors. And so I'm not taking that away from, but I think we should finish the other one first, the three netball courts.
Okay.
I will, I can see where it's heading, and I will support the money going to the netball. And if there is money left over, what happens to that will be a discussion for another time.
Yep.
I'm happy with allocating the 296 to stage 2 sports complex. Yeah.
So, all right, we've dealt with that. What do we got left?
You have nothing.
We have nothing.
You have a resolution back into council, so you can do the recommendation.
What happens here is we will turn that into the resolution. I'll take it back into council as opposed to committee of the whole. And then we'll use that as an alternate resolution.
And the mover and the seconder of the original one will.
Move us back in.
We haven't got one.
All right, we
We went straight to. So just, we're all happy with what's on the screen at the moment?
Yeah.
All right, I will now call for a mover and seconder to take us back into Code Meeting Practice Council.
Back in the council meeting.
Councillor McKibben, councillor Hayden. All in favour? So we now have an amendment to the recommendation. Sorry, alternate recommendation, which is coming up on the screen.
Absolutely.
But I think councillor McKechnie could.
I think so.
You can second it.
No.
Oh my God.
He's working on this.
All right.
Let's just go with that, and Karen will fix it in a minute.
Okay, so before we have an alternate recommendation, which is that council support the allocation of $190,000 to support the budget deficit reduction by replacing the same funds of council own source contribution for in the 23-24 operational plan. That's a bit awkward. To replacement of current scope in phase 3 with 434,900 being claimed for the reduction of the Oberon Library and Community Centre project.
Find the word.
You have to, do you think we could name page 3 or
Be allocated. or reduction?
Allocated
Yeah.
for the reduction.
Allocated.
Yeah.
um,
You're not claiming it.
Okay,
sorry, can I just type my screen back for a minute and see whether I can work out how I can?
we did? Oh, sorry. I'm with you. Yeah, no. She wasn't in the edit.
Oh,
Okay, right, I've got it
Yeah,
back.
you're all
There we go. Okay.
when we say by replacing the same fund on council, that's.
Allocated.
Yeah.
And then we're claimed in number 2.
Perfect. By replacing the same fund of council and source contribution.
Could we maybe just leave it? Leave the budget deficit.
Yeah. Replacement of current scope in phase 2, and phase 3 of 434,900
To reduce the budget deficit.
being claimed for reduction.
Number 1, where it says relief, needs to say reduce.
Remove.
Doesn't.
Okay.
So getting on to number 2, so we replacement of current scope in phase 3 with 434,000.
Being allocated. No, claimed. Will be allocated.
Well, I think
Allocated. Claimed. No, you've got to allocate.
this is
No.
changing things.
Am I on number 2?
You're on number 2.
Right,
Number 1 looks pretty good to me.
okay, so tell me the words.
Replacement of current scope is phase 3.
We actually, let's say, move the Oberon Library to phase 3 of
Okay.
phase 3.
Three now
3 is
works.
I know.
All work. Yeah.
Will you come in and do project? Be allocated to stage 2 of the Oberon Sports Complex.
No, but that was the idea that we do a project.
Yeah, but we can discuss that after, whether it's allocated to that.
So stage 2 of the project is purely as far as we're concerned, the netball courts and the hockey fields.
Yeah, but I think the point of having a project is to say we're going to do one of those and then see how much was left and discuss what we do with that.
Yeah.
Well, Councillor Carter's point, that we should make a start on the surround the hospital.
We're at 2 projects. That's the project within stage 2.
Yeah, but that means the whole lot will be spent on that sports complex.
Yeah, that's good.
That is currently
That's it.
the recommendation as a majority.
Yeah.
Has been it.
But I don't think it was what we discussed. I think what we discussed was, we'll have up to that amount. We'll do a project being the netball. We'll see how much that's going to cost, and then we'll decide what to do with any balance.
Yeah, we said that was.
So that's actually what I said. But as it went round, I'm not sure that that was reflected,
Oh, I said that
because
was
I think
covered.
other people thought it should be spent on the curtilage for the hockey field.
Which is why we
Well,
changed projects rather than a project.
Yep.
Well, at the end of the day, when we find out how much it is to do the netball course, we're gonna come back to you and say there's either no money or heaps of money left over, and you will have another opportunity to look at this, whether it's in any sphere that you need it to be,
Okay,
roads or community.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
thank you, councillor. Second, councillor Hayden. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. That was much easier than I thought it was gonna be.
Well done. We
Well
might
done.
have to the whole more office.
All right, so
Page
for
one.
those in the gallery, that's how a sausage is made. All right, we've done the land matter of Black Springs. Policy review, staff training and development policy 2102. The recommendation is council endorse the updated changes to policy 2102, training and development required by updates to the local government state award 2023. Councillor McKibben, Councillor Hayden, Councillor McKibben.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, the changes are marked. I'm just getting a bit confused between the yellow and green. I'm thinking of changes of terminology with yellow, and then substantive changes were in green, if I'm correct, because there was nothing to say exactly what was what, but I think that was how I interpreted it. Is it correct?
That's correct.
All right, I'm more than happy to move this recommendation.
Third paragraph. Councillor.
Yes, I'm happy to second, it's all in keeping with
Oh,
the
okay.
state awards,
It is right there.
nothing further to add.
Anyone else wish to speak to this? Councillor McCarthy.
I'm not against the policy, but I think there should be a statement in there that if council provide the training, then the receiver of the training should undertake to work in that position. In other words, if we train a plant operator up, and then they say, thank you very much for the ticket, but I'm a truck driver, I'm not gonna, I think there should be some statement in this training thing to protect us and give us a bit of leeway as well.
That legally is good.
Through the chair, I understand exactly where the council is coming from, and I don't disagree with your comments. But we only provide training where it meets the requirements to council or for the job in which that person is currently in. However, there are times when, under our workforce management plan, where we're encouraging succession planning, we're encouraging people to build our own from within. And sometimes that means that particular thing doesn't work all the time. But we're mindful of that when we look at those opportunities.
You know, like I said, I think we need something in there that we provide this training and if called upon, and I'm saying only if, that the person should be required to undertake the training they've received to operate that machinery. But otherwise, they come here and they walk away with a terrific resume that cost them nothing, where and we paid for it. Anyway, that's the way I feel. I think it should be added in there.
Okay. Anyone else? Got a reply?
Thank you. Just moving on from what Councillor McCarthy said. Obviously, by training people in a broader range of activities, we should be creating a more productive and flexible workforce. Is that reflected in the conditions of engagement to say that where training occurs, that this will provide greater flexibility and productivity, and people can work in those respective areas that they're trained in. I'm not suggesting that's in the training document, but it's not the place, it's probably in their contractor engagement or in the award or something.
Part 3 of the objectives and scope of the policy, which is pretty much exactly what you just said.
That's right, but that has to be reflected also
In a PD.
in a PD.
Yep.
Yes, project.
They are, yep.
Absolutely, I understand that that's there, but it has to be reflected in their engagement to say, if you're engaged in training in these areas, then you have to be more flexible in your employment.
And that is the kicker that we're trying to use. It's the carrot to try and persuade people to go through with the training. So it's a win for us.
If we can get more productivity and flexibility.
Absolutely.
Right, okay. It's mine.
I'll put the motion.
Yes.
All in favour? Kathy is voted against, all others in favour. The motion is passed. All right, 14.1, monthly activity report for the general manager. Recommendations that report item 14.1 received as information. Councillor Hayden, Councillor Dunbar, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to recommend the report. Land development opportunities in here that temporarily halted. Is there any further explanation in regards to that?
Through the chair, a report was tabled at the last council meeting regarding the potential sale of some of the land.
Yeah.
That differed from what the original plan would have been in the industrial estate. That's why it's halted. We'll be bringing a report back to council as to option in the very near future.
Okay, and was there any further feedback from Minister Aitchison other than what she said coming in August and September? I'm sure all council would be excited for that visit.
And through the chair, that's the reason I put it in there. I thought all council would be keen to see the Minister Rhodes, who's excited to come to the road.
Will our mayor be collecting her from the outside host?
I'm going to try.
Just through the chair, sorry, just to add on that land development, the same applies for the residential land that council previously has resolved to support a cul-de-sac in the bottom end, creating the 13 lots. So we're looking to progress that as well.
So by the next meeting.
I'm hoping to have a tender prepared as soon as I can. Yeah.
Councillor Member.
I'm happy to second it, and I think you once again for a comprehensive report.
Thank you. Just on the, on page 117, on the 15th of June, and meeting with Darryl Lawrence with Crown Lands, could we have some information on that, please?
Yeah, so it's a catch up that I have with the Crown about certain their Crown leases and the management rights that currently hold over. We are, I think we're the Crown Trust of about a dozen Crown leases, so we catch up periodically to talk about those. Darryl was also talking about other ones that other private entities have control over, and just outline where they're up to in terms of how they need to renew their leases as well. So it's also, it just gives us an opportunity to, one, find out if you can remember rightly, we've got a number of plans of management for Crown. So we want them to move on those. They're currently with the minister. But just gives us that opportunity to look at the opportunities that exist in that regard.
Thank you. So, thank you, Mr. Just to follow on, so that in our status report, the first item, 12.207.21 is the plan of management of 24 Crown reserves. And on 11th of July, following the staff met with Crown Land. So that was one of the issues you raised with Darryl Lawrence.
Yeah, I met with them a couple of times, but yeah.
And have we got any idea when that's going to be finally resolved?
We keep on pushing.
So he wasn't able to give us a timeline or to say it will be dealt with in the next month.
Only that that I wasn't the first one to ask the question, and there's a number of them that are on the desk of the minister.
And to the extent you are able, is there any update with you in respect to your meetings with Borbury, the sport complex?
And the other, through the chair, the update would be that we have met on a number of occasions, trying to push them to progress their capability and capacity,
Yeah.
which all councillors would have now read in the existing probity plan. Whilst they don't have to be pre-qualified with the state's contractor requirements, and there's an obligation that they show capacity and capability in a construction sense, so that there's confidence with the state money is going to be spent accordingly. Cross Muller are the project managers and their civil and contract management. But as you probably understand, Cross Miller's so busy doing all Borg's work that they don't do too much of the private stuff unless they come in as a subcontractor. So it's then bringing them along for the ride as to what the expectation from the government is. So we met at that time on the 26th. I should know that day because I got booked speeding. Thank you very much for coming from that facility. But also we're just trying to finalise that now so it can go to the PCG for their endorsement.
So one of the issues we raised when we went through the probity plan was, is the board aware of what it's got to do to meet this capability and capacity?
Yep.
Requirement.
Yep.
And we were told that yes, they were. But, so it's actually Cross Miller who's going to have to do that.
Yeah, but it's Paul.
Yes.
Cross Miller is Paul. He's just a subsidiary. Cross Muller is a subsidiary of Paul.
So do we have a timeline for August when they'll get that?
Next week.
Next week.
Yep.
Their
We
first
met
draft?
again yesterday. No, we've had drafts. We're moving towards trying to provide that to the PCG by next week.
Okay. That's good. And do we have? Do you have any comments in relation to meeting 28th of June with our legal advisors through Oberon Pool and Fitness Centre that you can provide, or are you in a position to provide a comment in the confidential part of the meeting?
I potentially could do that.
Okay.
But equally, I have received correspondence from the Y asking for whether they could provide it by Friday.
Provide what?
All the things that we discussed in confidential.
Right, okay. Okay, so that was basically the discussion of our legal advisors.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
You've seen that information, councillor.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen the request for information, not the.
Yeah, that's right, but that's what that
Yeah.
related to.
Yeah. Okay, I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Anyone else? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Passed unanimously. 14.2, monthly activity report, planning development, July 2023, and recommendations at item 14.2 is repeat this information. Councillor Hayden, Councillor McKibben, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the report, your recommendation. I did want to ask a couple of questions and speak out in time frames, if I may, for the off-leash dog park being number one, and the Reef Primitive Camping Ground. I can see that there is a new quotation for a shed structure, and I'm just wondering what the time frame is going to be for the completion of that one. The fencing for the dog park, considering we've got the Red Bin Roundup coming up on the 3rd of December, and whether we're going to have those primitive those facilities up there for when that event on.
Through the chair, in terms of the primitive campground amenities, is anticipated to have that firmly in place and ready before the Red Bin Roundup.
So when do you think that might be completed by?
Having a further through the chair, having a further catch up with our project manager next week in terms of recommencing the project on site. I'm hoping that will recommence next week and finish within a period of months, or a couple of months.
Yeah.
In terms of the off-leash dog park, again, I'm taking quotations to the fencing and it's been, again, hoping to have that kicked off this month.
But I thought that you got quotations, several quotations for that fence, and then you were waiting last time to have that fence erected, and then we had all that rain. That was just the issue, because we just need somewhere to be able to delegate to these people that walk their dogs, like where they're going to have their off-leash area, that was.
Going through the chair, obviously with that bit of rain that we had, that delayed
Yeah.
contractors and that delayed them to get to our projects as well, so
Yeah.
I'm still taking them to be on site. So.
All right, is there any way that we can put that down as a priority just for those two, being the off-leash park and the primitive campground? Because they've been two of the ones that have been the longest, and then get onto the solar panels and that gym complex at the rear. It's just if I keep seeing this, it's nearly a year, that's all.
I understand, and
Yeah.
we'll definitely make it a priority.
Thank you.
Councillor Gibbon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to commend the director on page 120, that the list of applications in progress as of June 23, that basically any that have commenced and don't have a stop the clock, the latest that have been commenced is 28th of June, which is a marked improvement from where we were a month ago. Thank you, Director. If I could go back page 119 and a couple of comments. Just on the reef primitive camping ground amenities. So we have now found a new contractor to supply and install a shed. Is it the same contractor to do both?
Through the chair, the supply of different contractors in installing the shed.
So the install is the same contractor that was previously going to install the shed?
Through the chair, this stage not 100% confirmed.
Okay.
As I mentioned, we may have to go out to get other quotes, because with the delay, that person contractor's gone off with other work, so
Okay.
it may result in us having to get other quotes. Correct.
So we have accepted a new quote for the shed structure, as we've said, but we may have to go and get quotes for installation.
Through the chair, that's correct.
So that may delay a little bit.
Through the chair, as I mentioned, Councillor Hayden, having a meeting with the project manager next week, and that should outline where we're going in terms of whether we need new quotation and or timeline.
Fine, thank you very much. And if I could go to the gym complex, have we selected a contractor to do the modifications to the enclosure at the rear? I was just a little uncertain from the third sentence. A request for quotations has been undertaken with local building contractors. And subject to contractor is it works will commence. So I'm assuming that means we have actually selected a contractor, but we're waiting to see what their availability is. Is that how I do it?
Yeah, no, we've worked out project manager who is putting together the modification.
Yep.
And they've also made inquiries with local contractors in terms of their availability to do the project. Once moving forward, once the modification is
So do we have to go request the tenders for that, or we just go to quotation?
based on the amount of work, it will be requested tender.
Right, so that could take some time by the time we issue the RFT and get the tenders back.
Through the secret.
Okay, so probably, what are we now? We could be looking at the end of September by the time all that happens. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm happy with that. I'm happy to second it.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Yeah, through the chair, through the planning development director. Just curious about that number of complaints on animal control and livestock. Seems to be
There's a lot.
a heap, isn't it? Normally what's the most of those?
Through the chair, a lot of those are to do with animals that are out. again, through the chair, in the past, because we had the livestock contractor, we didn't actually calculate those into our figures with, complaints. So now that our contractor, our ranger does the livestock and the animal control as well, all in the one package, we've included those into the stat. And that's why they have increased in terms of what they were previously, but they're based on any animals that are obviously out of private properties, or and including any animals as well. Any livestock.
Yeah, livestock cattle. That's the heat though, isn't it?
Through the chair, however, that doesn't mean that it's 19 individual complaints against 19 separate. It could be 10 people complaining about the one thing.
About the same, yeah.
At least 3 people in my room complain about one particular landowner. No. Not me. Well, I haven't complained. All right, anyone else? All right, I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Unanimously. Item 14.3. Monthly activity report for technical services. Recommendation for report item 14.3 is received information. Councillor Hayden, Councillor McKibben. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, once again, it's a great report, it's lovely photographs. I do, however, have a couple of things I wanted to bring up regarding the Tablelands Way project. Yes, it's a lovely road, but I am noticing that there are limitations on where you can pull over for breakdown. There's limitations regarding the height of the road, and if you were to go over to the edge of the road, the car will probably flip over onto its side because it's way too high. And I'm finding that maybe we're going to end up having to put barriers along the whole road because of that section. Look, it's a lovely road. It looks like a lovely road. I don't like the look of the road, but it's taken away from the ambience that we have on our local beautiful tree-lined windy roads, and I've probably repeated myself several times. The significant amount of vegetation removal further down in the report on paragraph 4, I'm quite happy with that. Ripped out all those pine trees because we definitely don't want them, but I want to see that our native trees that aren't going to impact that road remain there so that our wildlife has somewhere to escape and get away. And I am curious to know if there's going to be any added beta to that road, because of the sudden drop off on each side.
Through the chair, certainly the project not finished, there's a long way to go yet. Yes, the road has been built up in a number of localities, and again, representative of the requirement of putting guardrail in some of those earlier sections where it's been bitumen sealed. So there is a lot of topsoil still from spoil from excavation, which will go and is already being placed on a lot of the edges, and will continue to be to a lesser degree to lessen that concern that you have with regard to cars off-road scenario. So it's not to say that there won't be a need for additional guardrail, and that will, as the road progresses with bitumen sealed and the weather becomes conducive to being able to do that, then installation of more guardrail may be certainly around the Darwood Road intersection. Probably could be an area, or there could be others. So certainly taking your other concerns around vegetation as we progress now towards the mount part of that project. It is not intended to be as wide, certainly up the hill. And we have been in consultation with several property owners through their differing concerns, not certainly vegetation, but in terms of curiosity around, what that construction process is going to entail. So yeah.
Councillor McKibben.
I'm more than happy to, second report, detailed report. So thank you very much for that. I would assume that, some of the steep batters on the side of the road may also be caused by the fact that we're trying to preserve as much native vegetation on the road as possible and not impact on that. So it's a difficult balancing act, I'm assuming, technical services director.
It's definitely do, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question also in relation to Low Mount Road. And following on from the previous comments. In the third paragraph, it says staff have worked with a consultant to finalise the environmental requirements. So does that mean it has been finalised, or is that work still in progress?
Through the chair, we are at a position where we now believe we are comfortable with obviously the study that's been undertaken. And again, as I just reiterated, in terms of the reduced approach with pavement width, particularly from the boarding kennel location on Low Mount Road, right through until just past the top of the hill, which we understand is the most sensitive area.
The reason for asking was that I've raised before and was interested to have a look at that RAF and we'll go on to the portal. Can we arrange for it on the portal? That will do. Thank you. That was all.
Anyone else? Kathy?
Good to see that Tablelands Way progressing, but down there, Canberra, there's the road's half missing and you two people come from Lithgow, you'd know you've got nowhere else to go sometimes. You can't get on the wrong side of the road, it needs repairing even though we're upgrading the road. But can I have an understanding what we're doing with the last kilometre near from Albion Street out? Is that going to be hot mixed or what are we doing there?
Through the chair, depending on at the end of the day, how much funding is still available at the end. It was always envisaged to be two-coat. Again, I have mentioned that it would be better or a better fit, more conducive to a hot mix surface of for larger vehicles.
I thought somewhere that it was going to be 150 mil hot mix.
On the same belief, but
Yeah.
why I've asked the question is, we are now getting the money from, we should have our first instalment from Borg's levy. I don't know what that is, but it should be besides the amount that could be added to it, plus then the other half kilometre that he's got to pay for as well.
Yeah. So the thing is that he's also responsible for post-construction activity for the new development that he did. There is a condition of consent in that, so we'll look at those.
But I'd like to know what we're doing, that's all. But if we're doing 150 mil hot mix, we're doing it. If we're going down the other, as you see it, as today, the moment you have a bit of bad weather, you know, at least half a dozen bottles, if not more. So we know the trucks are screwing there and that's just the nature of the beast. But we need to know what's going on. We're either hot mixing it or we're not hot mixing, we're stabilising it or whatever. Surely goodness we should know with our budget numbers, but
Just through the chair, I just want to like certainly that is something that we're envisaging. Hot mix would be a better outcome. Again, the project scope was always two-coat bitumen seal. Again, it is ambition to put that down, and it may be certainly if our funding is looking a bit shorter, that top up could be the answer of being able to provide a surface on that last one.
okay. And the other one was the result of down at Bailey's Lane is when the surface that was relayed down there after the discussion. It looks terrific. It's an all-purpose road we got there. Thank you.
Motion, all those in favour? Motion is passed. Item 14.4, monthly activity report, corporate services, and the recommendation is that item 14.4 is received as information. Moving quickly, councillor Hayden. Councillor Trimbar. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation to receive the report. It's been, it's a great report, by the way. And I just wanted to talk about, the, opening of the library and community centre and, the NAIDOC activities that were going on. I thought that the painting day and that was well received and, yeah.
Councillor Timber.
I'm happy to second it, and I too was very impressed with the opening of the community library and also NAIDOC. Really quite a big success, and it's nice to see some of the activities happening. in the new location.
Anyone else? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Carried unanimously. 14.5. Investor. Recommendation of item 14.5 is receive this information. Councillor McKinney, Councillor McKinnon, Councillor Getty.
Yes, pretty straightforward report. I assume that those items on the top of the list. I think the first five that were filled earlier this month. Obviously reinvested, are they not? Just sitting in the vault at the back.
The chair, we turn over last weekend.
Yeah, this was probably printed before. That's all, thank you.
No, and the interest rates being obtained is indicated at the top of page 137 and also within the table 136 indicates that we're getting up to 5.65% now on 500,000, which is excellent. So I'm more than happy to second the report.
Anyone else? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Unanimously. Item 14.6, Grand Update for July 2023, and the recommendation is item 14.6 to receive the information. Councillor Hayden, Councillor McKibbin. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the report.
Thanks, Bill. I'm happy to second, but I've got a couple of questions if I could. Number one is under grant funding notifications, and we obviously have the visitor information solar panel funding deed. I note also that we have SCCF, I think it is round 5, which was solar panels on the gym, pool and library. That's what it's said on page 119. So we have the library covered as well, do we?
Yes, that's correct.
So the 100,000 will cover all those solar panels on all those buildings, the gym, pool and library.
For the chair, that's the grants on waiting to see the quotations that come back. The visitor centre one was separately for another location, which we've undertaken a variation to this facility. That's why that's taken a little while to get that to new deed. But seeing what quotations will come back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, thank you. And I think it's of interest to council if at some stage in the future we can actually make a determination as to what savings we're making on our electricity due to the solar installation. Just from a quick point of view, if we can do that. And if I could in 2B at the page, bottom of page 138. This is, I take it, this expression of interest for the SPP is growing, the Growing Regions program is another program. And when does that have to be? It's not the same one as the EOI for the sewage treatment plant under the Growing Regional Economies Fund, which is another one, is it? So this is another one. When does this have to be submitted? Yeah. And is this a 50-50 one?
To the chair, yeah, it's a different one. This is a federal one. It's the replacement for the Building Better Regions Fund.
Okay.
For the EOI opened on the 5th of July and needs to be submitted by early August, not the exact date, but early August.
And is it a 100% fund or we have to contribute?
100%, yeah, 100%.
100%? Yep. So we're asking for how much?
At this point, I think it's 3.3
3.04.
cover the delta.
Yeah, 3.05. Pity we don't have an updated we don't have PWA hasn't given us a detailed design so that we can get some indication as to what these things like in the cost, because the delta could be more than that. Anyway, do we have any update on PW? That's not.
It's all August. But what's all August?
September, we were told by Gary.
I'm happy to talk about it.
Yes. Thank you. All right, they're the only questions I had, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question that I've asked, the police constable, possible for. The total on page 139, the third project down. The grant program is Regional Drought Resilience Planning Program. And the details or description of the project, Drought Resilience Regional Strategic Economic Development Plan, doesn't say anything about what the actual project is. All of the others explain what the project is. But that one I can never remember. Is it something to do with solar panels?
No, through the chair, that is a grant program that is aimed at areas to develop a economic development plan that aims to build diversification in core industries such as agriculture, to build a more resilient economy during times of drought. That grant application is a three-way between Oberon, Bathurst and Lithgow. There's two phases with the initial planning and workshop phase where a consultant will talk to stakeholders, understand, and then formulate that into a cross LDA economic strategic document.
So the project description really is preparation of economic development plan.
That's correct.
Yeah. All right, that was all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Put motion, all in favour? Currently, item 14.7, water and sewer plant report and recommendations with item 14.7 as received as information. Councillor Hayden. Councillor Trimber, Councillor Hayden.
Yes, I'm happy to move the recommendation to accept the report. And I just wanted to say, that it was really good to see that, the main #1 pump station had no major blockages or problems during June. Thank you, community.
Happy to second it and noted that there were no blockages this month.
There's no blockages next month.
Thank you to the Oberon review for public time.
Okay, anyone else? I'll put motion, all in favour? Unanimously. Item 14.8, status of council resolution, July 2023, the recommendation of 14.8 is received as information. Councillor McKibben. Councillor Hayden, Councillor McKibben.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As always, I have some questions. If I could, page 144, 145, land at 34, I can never pronounce it. Avenue Oberon. Are we still waiting with the outcome of the Housing Australia Fund bill?
So council will be aware that we've gone into a growing regional economy fund, which the former state government were into this building Australian breed. There is a number of opportunities that are out there at this point in time for this type of thing. And we're just looking at trying to be frugal in how we go about it. So yes, the Australia bill is still something that we're chasing. What we are chasing is how do we get part, how do we lodge, what do we need to do, and what do we need to have on board in order to do that? But yes, we are. Because we're trying to minimise our costs to get a maximum benefit under this fund. As we will with the state one that's just about to come out.
Right.
And then we'll look at that one and continue to go down all options available to us to get that.
Fine. Do we have basically a drop dead date, that if we can't get funding from a third party source, that we would have to fund it ourselves.
That would be council, at this
That
point in
was
time, we've got $20,000 to do some planning, so. We're trying to look at how do we go about that, what do they want, so we can develop those plans on that basis, so. That's where we're at.
Right. But I mean, at some stage, we're probably going to make a determination. I suggest in this year or next year, if we're not successful in this.
If council wants to accelerate it,
Yeah.
by all means, accelerate it. I've purely done it on the basis of trying to save council as much money as I possibly can,
I think
as we've done with the other ones as well.
Yeah, fully appreciate it. So, the next one is the, Bogger Road. Have we transferred that small parcel for the last comment was 7th of February?
It's still a matter of progress. I am pursuing that one, so I'd like to get that off the books as quick as I can.
I think we all would. So if we could please give us an update at the next meeting.
So through the chair, because that one is what it is, we're also looking at ways that we can limit or excuse the need for a legal representative to be able to do this, but you need to pay people in our stuff. Now, the person who was engaged to do that job has been under the pump like everyone else is, but it's a matter of just giving that opportunity to that person to be able to better present that document to the state, so we don't have to go through legal to do that.
No, fully understand that, and maybe.
And there is a couple in this report where you'll see.
Yeah.
We're going to use these ones as basically the training.
Or maybe the comment should be put there, Council Crony is working on this project. In amongst other activities that they have. I'll make the update accordingly. Yeah, something like that. Okay. In page 147, the revised options for the layout, I know you commented on before, do we have any date for those being prepared and costed? For the industrial?
I'll bring that back to hopefully August.
Right.
If not August, September.
So is the matter at the top of page 148 in the same position as the one we just discussed?
Yep.
So it's with our trainee staff to
Yep.
prepare documentation. Again, if we can just put that copy. Have we got any update on midway down 149, the borrowing policy? I note that we expected Office of Local Government to provide their outcome within days, and days from the 11th of July would mean we could have it now.
Through the chair, as you can see, this has been a ongoing follow-up process for us. Whether or not the time has passed, we are aware that there is interest being incurred, and during that time we had to sit down internal ways to reduce the loan that we've been asking OLD. We had a video conference with them earlier in last week. An indication was that it was on the desk ready for signing, and although yet to be received, so we'll continue that process, but the indication was it was coming within days.
So we obviously have reduced the necessity for the loan on this activity, but again, we're going to go through this again on the STP. Potentially, sorry, potentially.
I have escalated that through the DepSec as well.
Okay.
But it was done after.
Just on top of page 151, sorry, second row down. When do we believe that the various scenarios for this town improvement fund levy projects will be created for us to look at?
Through the chair, as before, we were having some discussions with OLD and other stakeholders regarding this process. So we are not too far away from going back with the timelines for the next step, but that is included some some substantial modelling and prep work, so.
I realise that.
Yeah, we are looking to provide a more thorough update to council pretty soon about that timeline where that's at, so.
So if you're looking at having sort of something by September,
Yeah, possibly a more thorough update in August as to what has happened at this point and what's the pathway to, yeah.
okay, and just on the next item, if I could, the works on the kitchen at Black Springs, have they started?
To the chair, they were supposed to start this week. We have been, that contract has been reverted to the O'Connell Rec Ground. Finish some shelters down there. But once that work is done, they'll be back to the kitchen, but yeah, I guess they had been on site in scope, but they were reverted to finish that project into the grant window for that particular project.
And the next two, one of these policies has come back to it, but has the public gates and grids policy come back to it?
Those policies will come back in August.
So could we revise those? Yeah.
The responsible officer was away, family reasoning and leading the stage because there's just a couple of things that we need to make sure that are adequate if we're going to put them in, so that's why we prefer them for August.
I mean, I did think I gave some funds on the on a couple, yeah, and
There's a number that we just considered admin and they are pretty simple.
so that the curb and gutter policy is the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's two, probably that maybe one,
Three listed there, I think, you know.
Yeah.
That's right, they'll bring back August.
So if I put on page 153, is the request for tender documents gone out for the curbside garbage?
they've been prepared or
Right.
just about to go out, yeah, very shortly. There's been some just reshaping or remodeling around the transfer station and stuff, so that's being sorted and those more things can go out.
Okay. That's that's all I have.
Councillor Hayden.
I'm sorry. Yes, no, I'm not necessarily excited.
Okay. Anyone else?
I just have one question, the recommunity, we did have a discussion about possibly a further discussion with the liquidators about money being coming up to, not just wondered if that has happened.
So through the chair, the liquidator sent us a letter saying you're in line with everyone else, pretty much. They rejected the claim that when we lodged that money in the day before, they've said.
The day off.
The day off, yeah.
So they. I think I might have indicated I would have thought there's an indication that there may be some indication that the company was insolvent prior to accepting payment.
The first report has been put out. It's very interesting read.
Right, and okay,
And I'm more than happy to provide the
yes,
that commentary to you if you would.
do that in confidential. Okay, fine, I won't get, I don't think we should.
No. Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor McCarthy.
The land east of the skate park, do we need that reinstated in the report or not?
So the land is the council has resolved to put it to tender and they've picked a third number of lots. Okay, it's just putting it together. There's no need for it to come back.
Now, motion on the vote. Unanimously. Okay, there is no urgent business. And we will now be entering closed session. In accordance with Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulations 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following business is of a kind referred to in section 10 alpha 2 of the Act and should be dealt with part of the meeting, closed to the media and the public. Thank you very much for your perseverance this evening. And I've moved and second, Councillor McKibben, Councillor Hayden, all those in favour? Passed. Stop recording, please. And I'll- Good evening, this council has been in confidential session, and we are now back in open council at 9:23 p.m. During the confidential session, the following resolutions were made. Item 16.1, B 2023/3, fixing local roads and round 4, Arkstone Road rehabilitation. The council accepts the schedule of rates submitted by PJ and HA Gracie's Earth Moving Proprietary Limited for gravel overlay. Item 16.2, Oberon tourist brochure. The council to further and seek further information regarding the development of Oberon's next tourism brochure. Item 16.3, land matter request for road closure and sale. The council undertakes the recommendations as outlined in the report. And item 16.4, section 356 donation request for reconsideration. The council did not consider the application and advise the applicant of the council's decision. I'll now close this council meeting at 9:24 p.m. Thank you for those who attended via Zoom and were in the gallery. Good night and safe trip. Thank you, council.